Oh, I got that new backdrop.
Hey, we're live.
I forgot the new backdrop.
I know. Yeah.
We'll get it on the next one.
I'm missing that right now. This is SAKtown Talk Live on KIVH FM Seward, Seward Public Radio, and Seward Public Media for the world. We're recording this live on January 24th, 2025 in the studio here, and we'll play it on the radio, and it'll be available. This will probably be an evergreen show. So we're talking with the City of Seward and Alaska Tree Service, and Taylor is with you're contracted through MEA with the city, and you're managing various aspects of the electric department, right? Yep. Including the tree management system, integrated vegetation management. Yeah.
Yep. Kind of electric operations. So that includes the line work, the power generation, right away, all those different aspects.
Right on. And we also have Mr. Irvin in here, and I'm stuck on William Irvin. Yeah, he is with Alaska Tree Service. We got that straightened out in our first attempt at this, and I was kind of leading him down a little historical journey through the tree management stuff that Alaska Tree Service has been doing here for the past few years. If you've been seeing crews alongside the road cutting down trees, that's been Alaska Tree Service. Then you went through the various rights of way and did some things that people can't see, but you basically followed all the power lines through here and removed a lot of trees, but apparently not enough. So there's various aspects of what you guys are doing. I guess we can just address the community safety aspects of it. First, we were talking a little bit about the wildfire issues and what you can do with fire. We talked a little bit about the FireWise program, and you were talking, you can go ahead and discuss FireWise and what we can do to, as far as tree management, to deal with the wildfire risk in this area. We haven't seen a wildfire here, but of course, Swan Lake, and sooner or later, maybe with the snowpack this year, it could be dry enough, could be high risk.
Precisely. So, one of our highest priorities is to prevent wildfires, and the work that we're doing around the right-of-ways is, especially if you're driving through forest acres, you'll see that there were some branches that were really close to the power lines. And if it dried out, I'm not saying that Seward ever would dry out, but if it did, those trees would light off, and we could create a wildfire that way. The FireWise program through the Alaska Department of Forestry is more so kind of getting defensible space like around your house. And so we kind of work with the same thing, like protecting the power lines or house or whatever, making sure that we have a defensible space around it, and that we're not going to light the trees on fire that would cause mass carnage in this area if they were all to dry out one day.
Well, we've seen, there's been an object, obviously this is in California, and we don't get Santa Ana winds. So, but with the recent example of Swan Lake fire, you don't have to be in California to have a massive, truly, horrific, destructive fire. And if that were to happen in a populated area, it got pretty close to Moose Pass. And
our smoke was horrendous, being that close.
On the health effects, so definitely getting out in front of that. So there's different education programs. Are you working with Seward Fire and Bear Creek and the various fire departments? Is it kind of a coordinated effort, or are you going to be getting into that?
Yeah, we could totally get into that. That kind of comes into public engagement. And so working with both fire departments, obviously if we had a fire, they'd be working with us to kill the power lines and, just make sure the scene's safe for the firefighters to go fight the fire. Kind of where we come in right now with AK Tree Service is preventing that fire from starting from the power lines in the first place. And so you can always have, these fires that are started with fireworks or lightning or all the other things, but we just don't want them to start, from contact with the power lines, getting the trees in the lines.
Yeah, that's another kind of California. That's the most common examples. The PG&E's decrepit infrastructure is regularly causing wildfires in California. We haven't really seen that here, have we? Or how,
Well, so, a lot of times there's, fires that can start that aren't really the fault of the utility. So you'll have like a transmission line somewhere and you clear that line And basically your right of way for transmission is either like 60 or 100 feet. Sometimes with higher voltage, it's even up to 150 feet. And so that would 150 feet would be like 75 feet from the center of the line out to the edge. But you might have what's called fall-in risk outside of the area that you can cut. And so then with the fall-in risk, if it's identified as a danger tree, that's like a decaying tree or a dead tree, we can go outside of the right of way and cut that one down because that's, a risk. But if you have one of these windstorms come through, for instance, the Grouse Lake outage that we had back in October, we had these trees that the root system is very shallow, and these were actually hemlocks and probably 100 plus feet tall hemlocks that were outside of the right of way, and the wind blew them and the root system pulled up from the ground. And so now we have a tree that's outside of our right of way hitting the power line. And in that case, it broke a pole in half and broke some insulators and took the line to the ground on the Grouse Lake Road.
In Cuesta Woods, you may see some cottonwood that are, in fact, we were out there looking at one yesterday.
So these are threats, but they're out of the right of way. So you have limited ability to just go in and clear them until they cause a problem, or got to talk with the property owner. How does that get resolved?
Right. So whenever they put power lines in, they get an easement for those power lines, and that's what's considered your right of way. And so you're allowed to clear from edge to edge on those right of ways. But like in Alaska, and especially across from Kenai Lake, so when you're driving down the road, it's like mile 18 and all the way up to like mile 22. The power lines are up on the side of the mountain. And so you've got like this slope angle that's super steep, and you got these trees that are 100 feet tall above the edge of your right of way that still have a fall-in risk. But, legally, we can't take every single one of those trees down that could fall into the line. We can only take the ones that are dead or decaying, who we've identified as a hazard tree. And so it's basically making it so, the utility isn't just going to clear cut the whole forest for everything that can fall into the line, but you really hope that you've got healthy vegetation that's not going to come down in the wind. But the problem in this area is that a lot of these root systems don't run that deep because they're on bedrock or, just kind of gravel soil. And so when you get a wind like we just had over by Kenai Lake, it was the worst. So at mile 23, we had a hemlock come down and snap the pole in half. And then at mile 18 and a half, which is like foot access only, we had, how many trees do you guys have up there? Is that
3 trees, I believe?
Yep. 3 of them that came down. And then the Renfro's campground had, was that like 20?
Quite a few. It was a mess.
So that was a single phase distribution line.
Yeah, and that's really densely forested there. Yeah. That little isthmus that goes out there at Renfro's. So for householders who don't want to basically cut down all their trees, when you're looking at power line, risk management versus wildfire risk management. I mean, if you take a look, I have this circular here from UAF. Trees, selecting the right trees for the right place, and it pretty much shows the whole yard's cleared out. And you have trees around the perimeter. A lot of people would object to that. They'd say, they want a different lifestyle. So it's a cost benefit analysis, lifestyle until when, kind of deal. So what's the recommendation is it for tree management as far as, for homeowners?
Well, see, they have some of the trees in the center, like my little maple tree, my little miniature maple trees right next to the house, and that's never going to cause
tree
a problem
size
for
would
the power
obviously
line.
be an issue, right? And then placement so that if it falls, it doesn't hit something, right?
Right. And, from our seat in the bleachers as an electric utility, we want to make sure that the overhead primary, that's the lines that are energized and the kind of off of diamonds, that's 7,200 volts that are on that power line.
Holy cow.
We want to make sure that the trees aren't getting into that line, but then you'll have a transformer on a pole, then you'll have a service that drops down to your house. So that service is jacketed. And so it's kind of like having extension cords going to your house. But so that's not going to have the fire risk that unjacketed primary conductor has. But as far as your service goes, you also don't want to have the wind blow and tree drop into it. But that's on the customer side, their responsibility to maintain the stuff in their yard, going to their house. So as far as like starting fires goes, I'm worried about the unjacketed primary conductors. But as far as the homeowner side goes, it's like you definitely don't want to have trees that are in that service cable, because a windstorm could cause your service to get ripped off your house, and your mast to come down and damage your roof and all that good stuff.
And how much of the cost of that situation is absorbed? At a certain point, there's a line where if you're not maintaining your part of the deal, then you're going to have to absorb some of the costs. The electric utility is not going to pick up the cost of repairing your line past a certain point, right?
Right. So on the customer side of the transformer for that service, if a tree takes that down in your yard, you're going to have to hire an electrician to get your mast put back up, pay us to come out and get the service reattached to that mast. And then, if the transformer was to break because of it, then you're buying a transformer too. Or you can call us ahead of time and we can come and do a free drop of that service. You can cut down the tree that was in question, and then we'll put it back up for you. And you don't have to worry about fixing your roof or paying us to get the service.
Oh, so you'll disconnect the power.
Yeah, so we'll drop that service line
right
for you if you want to cut some trees down around it, just for your safety, and then you don't break our equipment or the roof of your house at the same time.
And then William, your operation, Alaska Tree Service, you're available to come in and make an assessment and take a look at like a homeowner situation and give them an assessment of what they should be doing with their trees, not just for power lines, but for structure protection. And
yeah, absolutely. If we're available, I'd like to make a comment on trees contacting the lines. I've actually seen in Forest Acres and other places on Seward Electric property in the last week and a half, branches that have been burned off of the lines, charcoal branches laying on the ground, and actually branches burning with smoke coming off of them, which is like that's a pretty serious hazard. And even places that are wet climate, there's times when it's dry, so
and it'll get a little wind, and then you've got a situation. Yeah,
it's a public safety hazard for sure.
Yeah, I think they were a little kind when they described Forest Acres and the trees touching the lines. They're like going through the lines. It was like my yard. I saw them drive around. And I said, I know those trees are going to have to come down, and I've been worried about that for a while, and my responsibility, and keeping my kid from climbing the trees. Well, he's older now, but in the past, that's a concern, is kids and bears climb those trees too. And
since we're kind of talking about public safety as well, so electricity always wants to find a path to ground, and so a lot of these trees, they have water in them, all the stuff, so the insulating factor is not that great. And so if you get a tree that's actually in a power line, the power line's still energized, that electricity can take a path through the tree down to the ground. And then it can create what's called a step potential at the base of the tree. So that voltage is going to bleed off the farther you go. But if you step near the base of that tree and the voltage difference is high enough, it can go in one leg and out the other and actually electrocute you. And so, we're worried about kids climbing trees, animals like wildlife, bears climbing trees. I think you had a bear in the tree.
Twice we had a bear in the tree. Yeah.
But then we're also worried about the electricity taking a path through the tree to ground, and then having a kid playing at the base of the tree or something that ends up getting electrocuted. So, it's not just the wildfire risk. There's a lot of other risks involved with having trees in the line. And then, you also have voltage that are running through different paths that you don't really want it running through. So that, I want the voltage going to your house and, powering your house and stuff, not like powering some trees and stuff around the neighborhood. So we
can't control the wind, but unfortunately.
Yeah, we've been getting some significant wind events here recently. So as far as getting the word out, of course, we're doing this program here. Who do you contact for? Where can people find out information on this? Obviously, you can contact the the electric department, the fire department, Alaska Tree Service. Is there some? Do you have some materials online or?
Well, the city electric department has a Facebook page, and then we also have a website. And so a lot of people will, use our website. There's a kind of a citywide complaints button, I guess it's probably called something more specific, but I get emails every once in a while with people identifying trees that are in the power lines. And so then I've got a spreadsheet on our computer where we can keep track of all these danger trees, and then we hand those over to these guys so that they can go out and take care of them. So you can get a hold of us that way. We're in the annex building that's kitty corner from City Hall.
The old library.
Old library, and
Next to the new library.
I'm pretty sure everyone knows this now, but our electric billing desk moved over to the annex. So you can come in if you've got any kind of questions, about trees in the lines, your power bill, like anything you have for the electric department. We always welcome people to walk in. You can give us a call, and I've got my office number on the website and on Facebook.
Can we post these on the YouTube?
Yes.
Okay.
We can post links to them. Yeah.
Yep.
So if they're online somewhere,
We have
can link them.
PFDs.
Yeah.
We'll have some show notes on there. But anyway, like there's multiple ways you can get a hold of us, but if someone sees a hazard, we really want to have them reach out to us so we know about it.
And then you were talking about people calling things in, but you guys kind of got the bird's eye view on some of the situations you deal with. You've got a plan. As a matter of fact, we're going to talk about some upcoming activity. So you do aerial surveys, that kind of thing, drones, the whole works.
Precisely. So we're trying to use as much technology as we can in Seward, especially, we have 7 people in our electric department. And so if we utilize technology, it's, more eyes in the sky and everything. So one of the things we did for the integrated vegetation management plan is hire a company called Overstory, and they're based out of California. It started in Silicon Valley after the, I think it was it the Paradise Fire? Anyway, one of the fires down in California.
Campfire, maybe. Yeah.
PG&E.
Yeah.
And so this guy's like, I think we can use artificial intelligence to actually identify the worst areas around the power lines for the vegetation management. So we hired them. They flew some satellites over Seward.
And it's heat detection too.
Well, not really heat detection, kind of. But so what it does is they did a scan of our system, and then we sent them our GIS shape files, which show where our power lines are. And then they basically look at the vegetation. It uses AI, and it can actually figure out what species of trees there are, the growth rate on these trees,
How much they'll move around. Yeah.
Yep. And then we created a risk profile for distribution and transmission. So it's like how many feet away from the lines for like this level. So if we're like at a critical level, it's basically like the trees are touching the line. And then the least critical level is like that we have trees in the right of way, but they're not close to touching the line. And so the finished product is they sent us a heat map of our system, which is on their Overstory software. And then the tree crew gets to have an iPad, which we're still getting set up right now, but they'll have an iPad like next week, has Overstory on it. And then each span is identified with its risk.
And when you say heat map, you're talking about heat in terms of risk, not heat in terms of temperature, right?
100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the tree crew basically clicks on the span, and they can see all the information on it and determine which ones we need to hit first. And then as they're clearing it, they can take a before and after picture of that span. And that's a span is the sag of the wire in between 2 poles. And then they can put in any particular notes, if we had a customer that had a very specific tree that's been in their family, and we just had to trim it, or if there's any rocks that we should know about in the future, if we're, driving a 4-wheeler through that section in the wintertime, maybe there's some hazard rocks that you could hit and a lineman could get injured or something. If there's junk cars, along the right of way or anything like that, the notes go in it, and then that'll go back into our GIS system. And so when the linemen are looking at our GIS maps, they'll know exactly kind of what's in the right of way and whatnot.
So
when we cleared it.
Can we touch bases on why this company's doing it? So you, William, you kind of have to be an expert in electricity, and it's a specific
Definitely,
detail. It's not
definitely.
just a tree faller.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's very hazardous work. And so, yeah, one mistake and you could be wiping out a power line, and then, there could be bodily injury and
I don't
so
want to know
on.
what you guys
Yeah.
pay for insurance.
So, yeah, it's definitely important to have skilled guys that know what they're doing, working around the power lines. So our company specializes in that. That's what we do. We have contracts with other utilities as well. So we have very experienced guys and
Yes.
do a good job.
Yeah.
So they did the trees in front of my place, and they started when I was going to work. Customer came in and needed something that I'd left at home. So I ran back home. They were already done and there was no limbs anywhere. I could not tell that job had just been done. It was incredible.
Yeah, and I saw you, like I was mentioning earlier, that along Nash Road, they're taking out some trees in pretty tricky situations, like right next to houses, huge trees. That would see. I saw sectioning them down. It was obviously you know your craft.
Definitely.
Yeah. As far as well, we're here talking with Taylor Crocker with the City of Seward Electric Department. He's contracted from MEA, and William Irvin. I've got his name written down.
William. It's like a real uncommon name too.
I wrote it down. You're still yeah. Anyway, yeah. William Irvin with Alaska Tree Service. We got the morning show vibe going on this side of the table. She even socks me every once in a while. You can't see that. So as far as the progress, there's been a lot of progress made on clearing the rights of way. Is it done? I mean, it's never done, but as far as the contracts that have been let and the general welfare of the right of ways, they've been pretty much cleared?
I hate to say this, but the answer is no.
Okay.
But
he's honest.
So in Seward, and we knew this going into this contract. So, how AK Tree came back down here is based on an RFP that we put on, so a request for proposal, following city code on hiring. So we basically put a proposal out of what we needed to do. This particular contract went out as more of a logging contract because we have a lot of trees in the right of way that are like 30 plus years old. And so, normally if you had a maintained right of way, it'd be like mulching alders and just making sure that the smaller stuff isn't making it back into the lines. In our case, Forest Acres is a prime example. You got these trees that are, it's probably 30-year growth or better. And so we have to take those down so they're no longer in the power lines. And so Alaska Tree Service, they were the lowest bidder, but that's not really the only factor that you look at on RFPs. So they happen to be the lowest bidder, but you also look at the employees that each company has, their qualifications. So there's the electric hazard program for arborists is very important. Experience in the field, but then also just the skill level of the people that you have that are working for you. And,
Alaska Tree Service had a pretty impressive bench, huh? Well, guys with the right certs and
100%. Yeah. And so they were competing against another company out of Anchorage, and both the companies are very good tree service companies. But we were just very happy to see that Alaska Tree Service had the best rates, but then also had just a great roster of people that are working for them that are highly skilled.
And then how long is this? It seems like this has been going on for several years. When did you guys first come down here and start with your first contract?
I believe it was 2021.
Yeah. So it's been 4 years. And what's coming up as far as, what should people be looking out for as far as, is there projects that people are going to be noticing or are going to want to know about?
Right. So we'll probably be in Forest Acres for probably at least 3 weeks, won't you say?
No, it'll be a while. There's quite a bit of work in there.
And that's right now or next month or
happening right now.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
And then, we're planning on, and this is before we found out that we were going to have a winter without snow. But so we were thinking, why don't we work in town for the winter where there's less snow, and then we'll go out of town in the summer. So as of right now, we're going to complete Forest Acres, and then we're going to go down in the kind of the west side of downtown, in between like 2nd and 3rd Avenue and kind of that area out by the hospital. And then if we don't get more snow, we'll probably start heading out by the Camelot area as well. And then we've got some transmission work above mile 18 to do next summer. But we have to, our access point kind of like washed out in this last storm and stuff. So we've got maybe some culverting and some other things to do to get our access back.
Well, in winters where you have significant snowpack, there's another risk along that stretch. It's just the avalanche, which takes out trees. It's kind of interesting. Through the pass there up by Summit Lake, you can see the large transmission lines, and they have those kind of they have structures around them that kind of divert the snow, but that really doesn't help you if there's going to be there's no trees there. So all I have to worry about is the snow being diverted around the base of the poles. But up in mile 18 north of there, you got that side of that hill there where you got trees and avalanche risk, right?
Yeah. So I mean, you can see like at I think it's mile 20 where the avalanche chute comes through, and there's like no large trees there anymore.
That came down in front of me once. I thought, what is keeping those trees up? They fell and they're just standing there. And then I realized they were moving toward me.
Yeah. But then, mile 18, it may have avalanche risk, but it would be one of those like 100-year avalanches or something, because you've got all these mature trees. So that it doesn't run every year.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you kind of identify
like a 100-year flood, though. Sometimes they come every 5 years.
Yeah.
Or like this winter, we've seen a lot of kind of the more of the landslide kind of stuff from the excessive rainfall.
Yeah.
And the mud stuff. So that when you have a landslide like that and the trees start going, it can kind of create a domino effect as well, and that could always end up hitting the power line. But
I did have somebody ask a question. They said, in town especially, or in areas like where you can, is it cheaper in the long run to bury the power line? Or what are the dangers in that?
Well, kind of all of our new installations, except for ones that we can't, kind of like I'm working on this subdivision up by Lost Lake for Dan Rao right now. And so we really wanted to bury those lines, but it's probably rock, not. Yeah, it's just rock everywhere. Yeah. So you can blast pole holes and put it overhead. But it's pretty much the standard in the industry whenever you're putting in new line extensions that you're underground.
Yeah, Upper Camelot was all underground. Would be nice to get Lower Camelot that way too, because there's a lot of trees there. Either that or clearing the right of ways in Lower Camelot would be. I mean, it would look different after you got done because there would be a lot of trees gone. So,
and then I've worked a lot of projects where it's called overhead to underground projects, and in alleyways and stuff, you have to do survey locates to figure out what else you have in the ground. You might have fiber, fuel lines, whatever have you, water and sewer. But once you figure that out, then it's every homeowner that's along that line has to replace their meter base with an underground, meter base.
Ooh.
And so there's a lot of engineers across the U.S. right now that are kind of figuring out ways to do it. I mean, Dominion Power on the East Coast came up with like this junction box, so you can basically, instead of having your mast come down to the top of your meter base, you can basically put a U-joint on there, and then it goes down and it has a disconnect that then you can, bring your riser up from the ground to connect to and stuff. But it's, when you're talking about an overhead to underground project, there's a lot of things to think about. You've got like all these fences in the way, any other utilities, and then participation from the businesses and the homeowners to transfer, their meter bases.
Right. So we've got you're working on the Rouse subdivision, and we've had some installation activity up there at the top of Dora Way there through to Forest Acres. Is that electrical all pretty much put in at this point? at least to the streets. The streets is done, right?
Yep, for the most part. And then we're ordering some new direct bury streetlight poles to make the streetlights look great. You know, instead of having like wood poles run through there, we're going to have some aluminum poles and whatnot that are easy to install.
So that'll kind of be our model neighborhood.
They're probably less maintenance, or are they?
Well, yeah, they're not wood.
They don't rot.
The problem with streetlight poles, especially aluminum ones, are generally cars. You know, if someone isn't paying attention,
You got to have the snap off bolts. Yeah. Yeah.
well, these are like direct bears, so they just bend over. You know.
Oh,
You know,
I
you
see.
can. They're fairly easy to replace.
Yeah.
But so we'll go with those. And as far as like rotting, they'll never rot. You know, stuff like that.
I think somebody's hit the street pole in front of my store twice.
Yeah, I'll hit anything that's standing up. So, yeah, stop signs. You've been tackling for the past few years. We've been tackling the major issues and the high risk things. At some point, you're going to move into just preventative mode, right? Pretty much. Is that you're getting closer to that?
Exactly. So with this overstory program, we'll have a scan that's done once a year. So we'll be able to see kind of how much progress we made. And right now, I can't tell you how long it's going to take to reclaim all of the right-of-ways.
But this initial cost will not be that much every year.
100%. So we do this now, and then after we're done getting all the 30-year growth and the big stuff down, we'll be able to just go back into maintenance mode where we have a set schedule, and the tree crew is going to come down here and just take like the alders and the willows and stuff like that out.
And partnering with Alaska Tree Service for the technical and the heavy lifting has been crucial to making this project work to this point. At some point, when we slip more into a kind of a not standby, but just continuing low level effort to keep these things clear, there'll be opportunity for local people to work on these projects like brush management and that kind of thing.
Yep, and it's really split. So I've worked places where we've had a in-house tree crew that does the maintenance and stuff, and then a lot of other places contract that work out. And I think it ends up being about the same cost whether you have it in-house or you're contracting it out, because with these guys, they're down here for so many months out of the year. But then when we run out of work or the season doesn't fit,
then what do you do if they're local? Yeah,
then they move to another co-op that can take them on, and they work over there for a while. So then the city of Seward isn't having to pay for full-time employees that can't work year round. But the other thing is, in the Seward, our linemen have been also doing tree trimming, and then the guys that work at the power plant are like maintenance operators, so they can fix the generators at the power plant, run heavy equipment, operate our substations, and there's 100 other things in their job description. And that's a very Seward specific job that you wouldn't see, at the other utilities in Alaska. But so our employees, that even though they're not full-time tree guys, also have the, equipment and stuff to take care of the trees. But right now we don't have enough time. So the generator guys are working on our generation plant to make sure that it's very well maintained, especially with the gas shortages that they're talking about in South Central. We might run the generators in Seward a lot more than they have in the past. And then our linemen are, working on keeping the grid together. And then we're starting an inspection program where we basically, use drones, the bucket truck, and our field engineer to get everything that's in the system in Seward put in our GIS system, so we have better mapping, and then we can create from the inspection a 5-year maintenance plan for how we're going to do work. And then it just makes it easier to budget and hopefully keep rates down.
All right. I'd like to get a little bit more into the gas shortage thing. That's kind of off topic. And we could go down a rabbit trail there, I'm sure. Yeah. But you're anticipating more frequent use of the generators because there's going to be limitations on the power generated from Beluga, et cetera, or?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a specialist on the gas in Alaska, but just from what we've heard is that there's a shortage in Cook Inlet, and they're working on a remedy to that. So that's not in my wheelhouse. But what is in my wheelhouse is they're saying, and this is it's part of our power sales agreement from Chugach Electric. So we get a little bit better rate for being what's called interruptible. So if there's a gas shortage, they know that we have our own generation and they can just give us a call and say, hey, we need you to come online. Now, the generators that we have in Seward are capable of picking up Cooper Landing, Hope, and Girdwood if we need to. And, obviously,
Wow, did not know that.
And so as long as our transmission line's intact and we don't have trees in it and everything, it's like.
Did you say Cooper Landing, Hope, and Girdwood?
Yeah.
So that counts Moose Pass too. That's a large area. Wow.
Right. So we have these EMDs are, they're old generators from the 60s and 70s, but I think our highest time generator has like 7,000 hours on it.
Are those the same ones they put in locomotives?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's basically locomotives in the building. Yeah.
But so anyway, we got, the generators down there at the plant. We got 6 of them, and we're making sure right now that they're really well maintained. And so we've got, a bunch of parts on order. So our mechanics and we've got what's called a NECA temp from the IBW. So this guy is down here helping out as another plant operator. And then we've got specialists that are coming up from Seattle. And we're basically going to go through all these units and make sure everything is, pristine, ready to go. And then, we can hopefully save the day if they have to curtail gas to the generating plants.
So it's good to have the option.
Yeah. And during this last storm, if we didn't have them, we would have been out of power for the whole time.
So we're pretty unique.
Days,
we own our own company, the backup generators,
So what do the other communities do? So were we powering Cooper Landing, and was that just for Seward, or was the power interrupted to other areas too that we were providing power to, or when the generators were running, were they primarily just the local area?
So in this last storm, our technical difficulty was the trees and the transmission line over by Kenai Lake.
Yeah, so power didn't go far.
Yeah. So basically, the switch that's right in front of this place. It's called City Express.
Yes.
And so that switch had to be opened so that we could have the lines isolated heading north. And so, Primrose and Long, for a while, Long was being fed from Dave's Creek substation, which is if you're going towards Anchorage and you head towards Homer, then you're kind of on that straight stretch when it's 4-lane, and you'll see that big substation on the right.
90 miles an hour plus.
Yep. So that's where the Seward transmission line starts there and comes all the way down to Seward. But there's also a distribution line that goes from there down to Moose Pass, and then we have a switch that we can pick up line from the Chugach Electric distribution line that comes into line from Moose Pass. But anyway, in this last storm, there was a tree that hit the line over by Sterling, which that didn't really matter because in between Sterling and Quartz Creek, the transmission's been out because the line's getting upgraded from 115 kV to 230. And so they had a planned outage there. But then Chugach Electric lost their transmission line in between Portage and Dave's Creek substation. And so then we had our line down in next to Kenai Lake, and so there's no transmission getting into these substations to get Cooper Landing, Moose Pass, and Long back into power. And so that's why we got as many resources as we could at the beginning of the storm. And the thought being, if we could get our transmission back up, then from our power plant we can get all these people back into power from Seward.
So when we do that, do they pay us for that, or? Yeah.
Yep. So there's wholesale meters that Chugach Electric maintains. And so they keep track of all the kilowatt hours that we produce out of Seward. And so then it goes the other way too. So that when they're feeding us, then that's how they keep track of how much we owe them, for the cost of power adjustment. But when we're running our generators, we're not paying that cost of power adjustment to them. Instead, they're giving us the kilowatt hours, and then, we can bill the fuel from our generators into COPA ourselves.
Okay, well, that explains a lot about the recent power outage, and how we're managing these situations, these emergency situations when the power's out. Just kind of a question. I don't know. We won't need to spend a lot of time on it, but we've got this grant for this battery facility at the port, at the cruise ship terminal, and from my understanding, that's not really a power source. This is more of a buffer and surge capacity kind of element.
Well,
You can't doesn't generate power.
Yep. So the battery is a storage of power, right?
Right.
And so that's going to basically balance out the grid when the cruise ships come online. So the cruise ships are between like 7 and 16 megawatts. Now, just to reference, our whole system runs at about 8 megawatts. So, I mean,
I was going to ask for comparison. Thank you.
The cruise ships are basically the size of our whole current grid. And so the battery will help offset that, adjustment as the cruise ships are coming online. So we're going to have a transmission line that feeds down to the substation. There will be a battery bank, and then we'll basically supply the Seward company across the road, and they'll have another substation that goes to the voltage for the cruise ships and whatnot. But during the cruise ship season, the batteries are pretty much going to be for bringing cruise ships online, and then they'll be charging when they're not. Now, in the off season, our goal is to use that as spin reserve, so that if you have like renewables or, you're having to balance the grid in kind of real time, we'll be able to use those batteries, and we'll actually be able to get paid back.
So we'll lower our rate.
Could.
I mean, there's a lot of factors that play into that. I'm not sure if what kind of like rates the cruise ships are going to have and everything, but having that reserve as the battery bank will be a great asset to Seward. But this is probably about 2 years out, and we still have to do engineering, so I don't have all the specifics on the project yet, but it'll definitely be a benefit for Seward.
And can we talk about the safety of those batteries? I had some concerns from people messaging me, but from what I've found out, they're self-contained and they're actually pretty safe.
It's a modular system.
So the main brand that we're looking at right now is Tesla. And so if you go to the Tesla website, they've got a page on the fire protection and safety for fires. And so, and I'm just a guy that's looking at their website, right? I'm not the engineer behind this or anything. But if you just go to their website, they've got a ton of information on their battery and their fire protection systems.
And there's also a system like this in Sterling by the Harley shop. I know people that live in the neighborhood, and they said that they've never had an incident there. So
is that on grid? Is that a utility, or is that some individual or business?
it's utility, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but it's a huge setup. It's so right by the Forest Service, right by the fire safety site.
Oh, you're talking. Oh, yeah.
Those.
Is that where they have the gas reserve, the underground gas reserves too?
No,
yeah.
they don't have that next to the.
Okay, all right.
I'm pretty sure.
I didn't know they had a battery system in there. That's interesting.
I told you we should get some pictures of it.
We should do a show on this.
That's what I said.
When maybe when we get the engineering complete and stuff, we can have the engineer, on and
maybe get Clinton or somebody down here too. We can talk about fire safety, all the different dimensions of the project. Yeah, and maybe get Mickey back in here. I'm sure he'd like to come by and talk about the Seward Company side of things too. Anyway, a lot of exciting things in store. You guys are going to be busy here for the next few weeks in Forest Acres, clearing trees primarily, and going to move on to your other projects, and then I think as far as public information goes, the city website, contacting the city electric department, you can stop by the annex building or visit the website and pose your questions there. And we'll go ahead and post these different circulars and different information as show notes for this program. This is SAKtown Talk on Seward Public Media. And Taylor Crocker and William Irvin have been here with us in the studio this January morning, talking about tree and vegetation, the integrated vegetation management plan for the City of Seward Electric Department.
One more time. Okay. Do either one of you have anything to add? I say William's been a little quiet over there.
I'm just taking it in. No, I think it's a really good thing.
You guys run a pretty slick outfit. I was impressed.
That it needs to be done. So it'll be a good thing for the city of Seward for electric reliability, for safety. So, and then for the future as far as cost.
Yeah.
So.
Any last words there, Taylor?
Yeah, no, I just, we'll put another shout out to the Alaska Tree Service. So I've worked with a lot of different tree services in the past, and, some of them you can tell that you have people that are working on the crew that are just there, for the paycheck or whatnot. But with Alaska Tree Service crew, and especially during this last storm, you realize that you have people that, really excel in their craft, and they take their job very seriously and are true professionals. So we're very lucky to have them down here to assist us.
Yeah, and it looks like the electric department's in good hands too. Good continuity of management there, and I think people are going to be pretty satisfied with everything going forward. All right, we're going to go ahead and sign off. This has been SAKtown Talk Live here on KIBH FM Seward, and this will be broadcast on Monday, which is 3 days from now, which is the 24th. So it'd be like the 27th of January.